on, and I'm out of here.
Good morning, everyone. This is taken from chapter 10 of the Science of Mind text. Faith has been recognized as a power throughout the ages, whether it be faith in God, faith in one's fellow human, in oneself, or in what one is doing. The idea that faith has only to do with our religious experience is a mistake. Faith is a faculty of the mind that finds its highest expression in religious attitude. But always the one who has faith in one's own ability accomplishes far more than one who has no confidence in themselves. Those who have great faith have great power.
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
And so this morning I invite you to make a pledge this week with me to be mindful of where you place your faith. And it is my intention to place my faith in that which I hope for and believe, in the good that I perceive, and not in my fear, not in that which I don't like or don't feel good about, but to mindfully and repeatedly replace my faith in the good. The good in this world, the good in humans, the good in nature, the good in everything. And knowing that this is possible, and knowing that where our faith is, so our vision goes, and where our vision goes, our energy flows, then we know that we are empowered to be a force for good in our world, and that we are joined together in this intention. I make this pledge, and I accept that all the good that can come from it is revealed. And so it is. Amen.
How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Thank you, Jackson and Pamela. That's perfect setup for my talk. In fact, while Pamela was reading, I was thinking, gee, I don't even have to do a talk now because it's basically what I wanted to say, which is perfect. So today's message is faith in or faith of. And one of the areas about faith that I've thought a lot about this week is that the area about faith that gives us the most trouble is the concept that we have to acquire more of it. That we have to acquire more faith. And I'm going to tell you by the time we're finished that that's not the truth. It's sort of like having a computer and knowing its potential, but not having a clue how to use it. You know, I look at, before I was in ministry, I was a data processing manager with a huge mainframe computer that took up a whole room, and you know the things to back it up with were absolutely huge, the reels of tape. And now you pick up this little phone, and I have not a clue how to use all of its potential. And this is like faith. So then I found this picture on Google Images yesterday. I thought, oh, this is good. Faith is like Wi-Fi. It's invisible, but it has the power to connect you to what you need. Absolutely. So my ideas about faith here today are that, first of all, when we're not in faith, we find ourselves bargaining or begging or trying to manipulate the law or pleading God to have whatever it is that we want in our experience. And that's not what faith is at all. In fact, Dr. Holmes says, in order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to, wait a minute. I have to move the little pictures over. Nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. Faith is built up from belief, acceptance, and trust. Whenever anything enters our thought which destroys in any degree one of these attitudes, to that extent, faith is weakened. So the important key here is faith is built up from belief, acceptance, and trust. It's not bargaining, begging, manipulating, or pleading. My second idea is that faith is not static. It requires practice. And one of the things I love about our faith tradition is that we have such wonderful tools to use to enhance our faith. And one of those tools that I've mentioned many times, all your teachers have, I'm sure, is meditation. Daily meditation works well to keep us in alignment with that one power, one presence that we call God, or the divine, or first cause, or whatever we might call it. But meditation takes practice. You don't just sit down the first day and immediately come into enlightenment. In fact, most of you know that Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for 7 years before he entered enlightenment. So it takes practice. Spiritual mind treatment is a wonderful tool for enhancing our faith, because in those steps, if you look at those steps, the first one being recognition, the recognition that there is this one life, and this life is God's life, and we're all living this life. There is a power for good in the universe that we can use, or we are using all the time, as Dr. Holmes says. Whatever we need to say to ourselves in this first step to move ourselves into that consciousness of the oneness of the divine, it takes practice. Our second step is unification. So not only do we recognize that there is this power, but we also recognize that it's within us. And here is where I want to tell you that you do not need to acquire any more faith. God is faith. You already are faithful, full of faith, because that's what God is. And the only reason that we believe that we have to acquire faith or do things to acquire it is because we don't totally believe, trust, accept, and trust that that's our truth. As we say over and over again, there's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is our life right now. In this meat suit, as Jean Houston calls it, in this body is spirit, spirit itself. Not all of spirit, but definitely an emanation of spirit. And so we use these tools that we have to come into this place of recognizing that over and over and over again. Another tool that we teach that's in our spiritual toolbox is affirmations. Affirmations are short, sweet little statements that resonate in our bodies, resonate in our hearts and our minds. So that affirmation that I just used, there's only one life, that life is God's life, that life, it actually, when Dr. Holmes wrote it, says that life is perfect, that life is our life now, or my life now. That's an affirmation. So those short, sweet statements that we have, in fact, probably most of us have some written down and posted on our refrigerator or on our bulletin board by our computer or someplace. The interesting thing about affirmations, though, is that, especially the ones that we write down or, I have a couple of cards on my refrigerator that Bobby made a long time ago before I got here, that we used to pass out at church. And, you look at those a couple of times and they really mean something to you. And then it just becomes a piece of paper on the refrigerator after a while, until you finally stop again one day and really look at, what do I have on my refrigerator? And I look at all these pieces of paper and these affirmations, and I think, wow, that's a good one. Now that's a good one. And it comes to life again for me. Something that I read recently is, and it wasn't Dr. Holmes that said it, I can't remember who said it, but one of the things that it's important for us to remember at this time, when we are utilizing our faith and allowing ourselves to realize that that faith can expand by our recognition of it, is that we're not living in the world. We're living in our minds. That's kind of a hard statement to think about. It looks like I'm living in the world. I'm surrounded by plants and cats and windows and curtains and tables and clothes and all these material things. But that's not really where we live. We live in our minds. Everything happens in our minds. So it's in our minds that we need to believe, accept, and trust that there is faith already within us, that faith of God. My next example is that our life is our example of our faith. So I'm lucky, that's my job. I get to go around and talk about faith and belief and trust and all these wonderful things, but I don't need to proselytize about it, nor does anyone else who has faith, because our life is an example of it. And I was thinking this morning about what story could I share with you that is a story about faith. And I don't know what movie I saw this one on. It's a really old movie, but the town was going through a drought, and the drought just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and the crops were dying, and everybody was in despair. And the preacher of the town decides, this is what we're going to do. We're going to meet outside, and we're going to have a prayer meeting, and we're going to pray to God and know that God will bring us the rain. And so the whole town shows up to this prayer meeting, and the pastor goes on and prays and prays and prays about rain coming to the town. And there's one, I can't remember whether it's a little boy or a little girl, that brought an umbrella. I'll just say it's a little girl, brought an umbrella with her. And as the pastor is praying, she puts up her umbrella. And that's faith. That's really faith. I mean, all the other people, the farmers in particular, came to this prayer circle hoping, begging, manipulating, whatever, trying to work the law so that the rain would come. So in this idea of hope, hope is not bad, but in hope, there's an element of doubt. So this little girl shows up with her umbrella. There was no doubt there. She was ready for rain. Dr. Holmes says, in order to have faith, I read this one already, but I'm going to read it again. In order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. We must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. Faith is built from belief, acceptance, and trust. Whenever anything enters our thought which destroys in any degree one of these attitudes, to that extent, faith is weakened. Belief, acceptance, and trust. Those words come up all the time in our teaching and are so important for us to remember. So, faith in God, to me, is part of the process of our awakening. It's faith in God means faith, there's an element of belief in something outside of ourselves that is greater than we are. And it's part of the process. To me, it's the baby steps to realization. Faith of God, which is where we want to be, is an inner knowing that there is a power for good within us that always has been, always will be, and because of it, all will be well. So think about that for a moment in this experience that we're going through of the pandemic, the fires, the hurricanes, the locusts in Africa, all the different things, the political situation, etc., the divisiveness that has been uncovered in our collective consciousness. We're people of faith. This is what our teaching is about, is having that faith of God, knowing, absolutely knowing that there's a power for good that is working here. It might not look like it, but it is working. It always has been, it always will be, and because of it, all will be well. You know, I was getting to a place, I think I've mentioned last week or the week before, of thinking about, you know, how long we've been in shelter in place, how long it's been since I've been able to get a hug from anybody, you know, how long this experience is going on. And I was getting into a place of depression. And I found myself turning to prayer because that's what I do. And yet I also realized that I was turning to that God outside of me. And once I remembered that I wanted to have not just the faith in God, but the faith of God. Now, I'm not saying faith in God is bad, right? I'm not saying that's not where we're supposed to be. That is the perfect place we are at any moment in our lives. It's part of this awakening process. But having the faith of God, that inner knowing that all will be well, and remembering that in my own self made me suddenly realize, you know, it really isn't as bad as I've been making it out to be. I've been telling myself stories. Remember, we live in our heads. I've been telling myself stories about loneliness and, you know, all this kind of stuff, but it's really not been that bad. And then there was part of me that thought, oh, wow, I've had a change of heart, a change of mind. Must be going to be over pretty soon. Yes, okay, I'm ready for that. So let's work on having not just the faith in God, but the faith of God. This is the truth of our being, God. So we practice faith. It's not something we just have and forget about. And faith operates every day in every way. We know we're practicing faith when we respond to the world with love and compassion. Faith is an attitude of love, trust, and compassion. And here's what might be the hard part for a lot of people. In the end, faith is about surrender. Surrendering our ego, our need to be right, our need to fight, and allowing ourselves to be completely immersed in the divine. Ask yourself for a moment, can I surrender? Completely surrender and be immersed in the divine? I mean, the truth of us is we already are. There isn't anything that isn't divine. Not only is the divine living in and as us, but it's living in as and through everything, animate and inanimate. There's nothing but God. Let yourself really feel that. And maybe just might take a deep breath. I mean, my breath works the best for me in times when I start feeling myself getting tightened up, etc. It's just taking a deep breath and just letting it go, surrendering. Surrendering. So let's say this affirmation that Annie Marsh wrote, and we'll go into prayer. All good flows through me because I have the faith of God. And so this is what I know is true for each and every one of us. And I speak this word in the first person so that we can take this word in and make it our own, embody it. I know there is only one life. That life is divine life. And that life is within me right now. It's the life force that is running through my body, the divine energy that is activating all the cells and muscles and bones and everything in my body. And so I let myself think on these things with both my mind and my heart. There is only the one power, one presence, all powerful, all knowing, everywhere present. And knowing this, I allow myself to unify with that. I remember that the truth of me is I am not separate in any way from the divine. The divine is absolutely everything. And so this gives me a sense of joy. There is no way I can separate myself. I can think I'm separate, but that's not the truth. The truth is there is only the one power. And so I speak my word for each one of us, knowing that this one power has free access to every area of our lives. It is our bodies. And in this great power is a divine blueprint of perfect health. So we let ourselves feel all of our cells and atoms realigning themselves into this perfect blueprint. And any aches or pains we might have, any sense of fear about disease, all of that is just washed away by remembering this is divine life. Any beliefs about aging and all that could bring, all of that is released because this is divine life and it is good. And I know that this one powerful presence is within our financial life, that regardless of the naysayers or the people that are trying to scare us on the news, there is always more than enough. more than enough good. And so we allow ourselves, whenever we start to be afraid, we start thinking about counting our blessings, counting the blessings of finances, counting the blessings of our homes and all the things that we have in our life, recognizing the abundance of the universe that is just pouring itself in on us. And this too is good, and this too is God. And this same power and presence moves through us as love, an unconditional love that just loves and loves and loves, whether we receive it or not. It continues to love. So I know for each one of us that we open our hearts and minds and we allow ourselves to feel ourselves wrapped in the divine love that is everywhere present in this universe. Feeling its warmth and its nurturing. Feeling virtual hugs. Knowing now, in this particular moment of time, that we can use our eyes to express love. The eyes are the windows of our soul. So our love for others is seen in our eyes, and we see the love that is for us in their eyes. And how wonderful it is to be able to go deeper and experience this great divine love in absolutely everything. This too is God. This too is good. And I know that this great, powerful presence is within everything that we're doing in this world, the work that we do, the things that we create with our hands. This powerful presence is creation itself, and it moves through us with ease and grace. And so I celebrate. I celebrate creation in the artistry of absolutely everyone, because in some way we are all artists, expressing the divine clearly, wonderfully, playfully, however it might be. So I know we are abundant in creativity. And this too is God. This too is good. So knowing all these things, knowing that what I have declared into the law must manifest, I am grateful, so grateful for the faith I have, for the faith I am, for knowing this world is more than we could possibly ever imagine. And I declare that we now allow ourselves to rip our attention away from all the negativity and place it on the beauty, the creativity, the good that we see absolutely everywhere. So with a grateful heart, I know that in some way we've all been transformed by this morning. And this too is God. And so it is. Our music